time to armor up and level out. Listen up and hear what we're about.
Welcome back to Armor Radio. Josh here with Coach Caitlin. Coach Caitlin, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. And also Coach Chastity, former or still IFBB figure competitor. Welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here. Explain that to me. Is it a former or is it a retired, or how does it work? Is it in perpetuity? You are always and forever a figure athlete?
That's what I think, yes.
Okay, that's what you think?
That's what I
Okay.
think. Like,
Okay.
if I were to want to compete today, it would have to be on the pro show.
Oh, you can't do anything else. You're always a pro and forever a pro.
Unless there's a course or a journey you take as a master's competitor.
Got it.
That's
And
interesting.
I could go up through the ranks as a master's and turn pro.
Essentially because you had to earn it once.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, got it. So you always have it. Okay. That leads us into what we're talking about today. Caitlin recently competed in her first figure competition.
Yay.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Let's go with a couple of questions. So the first thing I think we need to talk about, when was it?
June 8th.
And today is the 20th?
Yeah, so 2 weeks ago, almost.
And I mean, this may sound interesting, but you look great.
Thanks.
And that's not always the case after athletes get done with the competition. A lot of times you look way different sometimes when you come out of a competition, but you look like still competition ready.
Hey, thanks.
That's
It's,
pretty awesome.
It's going slow, right? Slow reverse, like, let's not go crazy.
We're gonna get to like what crazy looks like and what you
Yeah.
did after the competition, but let's talk about first and foremost for our listeners what a figure competition is. Chastity, we'll kick that over to you. Explain the distinction between the different divisions that Caitlin could have competed in.
Well, first off, since I've been out of competition, there are other divisions too that a woman can compete in.
Okay.
There's fitness, figure, now there's wellness, and then women's bodybuilding,
Okay.
and bikini, right? So
What
that was-
separates all of those so that the listeners know what we're talking about?
We actually did a deep dive while Caitlin was on stage of what wellness is, because that's fairly new.
Okay.
It was fairly new to me. Bikini came along while I was competing, and that is a fit figure that doesn't necessarily have to display muscle separation or striation, but is judged on proportion or symmetry, and then grace and beauty. when
So a
they're on
little
stage.
less lean than some of the other.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah,
Got it.
less lean.
Okay.
But still fit, a fit figure that's balanced.
So if I'm looking on stage in terms of size and lean, that would be the least of both.
Correct.
Bikini. Okay.
Correct.
Got it.
Now, what we've determined is wellness may come into lesser than bikini. It's a possibility. You need to ask somebody with more information than myself.
Okay. Got it.
Then you have figure, and figure is muscle separation, more muscle. They want you to display more muscle than bikini,
Okay.
but muscle separation, symmetry, balance, and then poise on stage. Right?
Okay.
You would have fitness in there that is just honestly another concept to figure. They added a fitness routine, right? So
What's the routine look like?
the athlete is going to be on stage doing entertaining through gymnastics, push-ups,
Okay.
isometric holds.
So there's a performance component to that one.
Yeah.
And then the performance component to the other ones would be something like the way that you pose, right? I mean,
Correct,
that would
yeah.
count as,
Yeah, Caitlin needed a posing routine
okay.
for when she first walked out on stage.
Okay, so we have our distinctions. Now, Caitlin, why did you choose figure over bikini or wellness or, bodybuilding too? We didn't even talk about bodybuilding. So bodybuilding is the biggest
Yes.
and the leanest.
Yes, correct. They want
Got it.
muscle striation,
Okay.
not just separation.
Okay. So back to Caitlin. Why did you choose figure when you could have chosen any of those?
I think it chose me.
Oh, okay. Okay.
No, I think it was more of like the way it happened was kind of in a passing thing. I was like, well, like this girl looks great in the gym, and I see Chastity and like Divine Intervention. I was like, you ever miss coaching that? And she's like, yeah. And like, it's what she did, right? So like, it's what she knew. And like, did I know anything else about it? I just want to do something that was fun and different. So like,
Fun and different than, so tell me what you were doing before that.
yeah, more just like functional bodybuilding and CrossFit, some kind of like just doing my own thing, like not really anything like specific, but probably more weightlifting-ish, but not really.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then you made that decision to do your very first competition.
Yeah.
So that makes me want to kick it back to Chastity, because Caitlin even said you've been doing this for quite a while, decades of actually getting yourself ready and getting athletes ready for this. Does it always work? If the athlete follows the plan, does it always work?
It always works.
Okay.
Yes.
So I think it's very interesting to point out. Following the plan, we're going to talk about that, is simple but not easy. It's
Correct.
very challenging. There's a lot that goes into it. And we'll talk about some of the struggles that I may have had with the first one. But what you're saying is it's simple, it's not easy, but if every single athlete you've ever coached through it that followed the plan worked.
Yes, and they placed or came out in first.
Okay.
So the sport is mental toughness. It's a mental discipline.
Explain that to me.
When you see, well, the reason a bodybuilder is celebrated, even for getting on stage at all, is because they made it through weeks of discipline, and nutrition being arguably the hardest to nail down and capture, right? So when someone has stepped on stage at all, and honestly, even those that step on stage and you can see more could have happened for them, but the idea that they came a long way and they stuck by a plan for that many weeks is celebratory.
Yeah.
So the sport itself is a mental discipline.
Especially when you only have that one day that you've gotten ready for one specific thing that happens, and over a course of, Caitlin, how long was your readiness period?
So this is a debate, because Chastity says it was 10 weeks and I say it was a couple of months, but more of it was like re-body comp for me, right? So like building the muscle, like doing a lot of things differently to get the body that would be on stage. But like the dieting, like really she says 10 weeks to get me to where I needed to be, right?
So when you say dieting, does that mean a caloric deficit for 10 weeks? And does that mean also that you had time before that where you were in a caloric surplus, or what are we talking about?
Yeah, so let's see, we started like a trial mini cut in December.
Okay.
Which I had been on my maintenance calories before that.
That's months before the show, many months.
Yeah,
okay.
So then in January, we started like a reload of that, which put me into like, we've got to stay where we need to do. We need to build some muscle. We need to gain weight, stay the weight. So I feel like I was eating a lot of food then, like a lot, probably more than what my maintenance was before. And then April the 1st, wasn't a joke, we started the prep, which then puts me into the deficit. And we like started to go down from there.
So Chastity, why the sort of preemptive or test cut? What's that all about? Why would you do the trial run? Is that to see if you're going to like it? Is that to see how the body's going to respond to a small period of time?
Yeah. So I think we went through about 4 weeks of dieting. One, to see how fast she could lose body fat.
Is that because everybody responds differently?
Yes.
Okay, so you said it always works, but then now you're also saying that everybody responds differently to it always working. Yeah. So for instance, Caitlin could kick a whole bunch of muscle, or she could take longer to lose fat.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Got it. So that's an important distinction for athletes to be able to understand that it's going to be different, and you're also going to need that information for the timeline.
Right.
Because you would have had to start the diet at a different time depending on how that preemptive one worked.
Yes.
Okay.
Correct.
So how long did that last again?
We went through a 4-week period.
What was the caloric deficit?
I think I don't necessarily, I did it first, count up her calories, and whenever we were back up, I knew they were around 2,200, but probably while we were coming down, you even told me one time, you said you counted at 1,500. Yeah. Now I give her a plan, and I watch and see what happens through 2 weeks. And if her body's responding, I make out the new plan accordingly to that. And I'm watching to see if we need to stay the course in the same amount of calories, the same kind of carbohydrate, the same kind of protein, or if she's going to do better with something else. So it's not necessarily from me when I'm giving her a plan that I know exactly the calorie count. I know the right foods, and so I'm watching to see how her body responds to those foods.
Oof, there's a lot of stuff that wrapped up in that.
Yeah.
So, and I've seen you do it many times, and I've said this I've never met anybody that can look at something and know. And Chastity's the one. She'll be like, look at this. This person is doing this right, or they're doing this wrong. And I'm like, I don't see any difference.
Well, and then get back to what you said before. It's like in November, well, we had a Thanksgiving party or a Christmas party, and we dressed up at Christmas.
Yeah, Christmas.
Yeah, and I remember coming home from that, and I was like, she came down quick, and she's happy. I'm like, we have a winner here. Like, that is awesome. Those are the two main things that we need. Is like she likes doing what she's doing, and her body's responding like clockwork. So
kudos to you for actually doing the thing. Like that, at the end of the day, you did the thing and did the work, and that nobody can ever take that away. That's amazing.
I know, right? Thank you.
That's so good. But secondarily, like I know I don't do it that way. When I coach athletes through it, I'm a little bit more formal, and I'm not taking anything away from yours. I think what you're doing is remarkably more complicated than what I'm doing. But I know exactly what you're talking about. You're actually just taking. I know that I've done this for so long that I can look at X diet and see what happens to my athlete, and then I can adjust to the next diet. What's the significance of 2 weeks? Why is it just the body starts to adapt? Is that just how you like it? Is it that's how we continue progress? Like, why do I do 2 week blocks of roughly the same exact food? Right? Okay, so why is it 2 weeks?
Yeah, the body's going to respond to what I gave her probably within a week if she's in shape. If she's in shape, the body's going to respond in a week. But 2 weeks is enough time to like gather just that more information. You gather more information on her maintaining her morning cardio, maintaining the schedule that she needs to through working out, and just watching her change. You get 2 weeks of watching her change. Probably after 1 week, I know that it's either good or bad. I'd say after 1 week, if it's not doing what we want to do, I would give her a slight change. Right?
And if we're trending to the competition, then what we want her to do is get leaner and preserve muscle.
Mm-hmm, yes.
Okay, so that's what you're watching through the whole time. Now, on certain athletes, it probably changes. On certain athletes, you might not be trying to get as lean because maybe they're already lean. You're trying to get bigger.
Right.
It just depends.
Yeah.
But you would just be watching your different metrics the entire time?
Yes.
Okay. That sounds like that takes a lot of know-how in there. And Caitlin, how does it feel to be, now when I said you're eating the same thing, is that Monday is exactly the same as Tuesday, or is that meal one is exactly the same across the week? Like, what does eating the same thing truly mean?
Yeah.
Yeah? Explain. So give me an average day. What did it look like for you? Run me through how your day worked, when you got up, what was the first thing you did? Like, run me through that.
At what point?
Yeah.
Listen, there's some times that I would be like, what am I doing? But, it was
when
always
you were at
like
the most things, what did it look like?
Food.
Not necessarily the most food.
Like the schedule for your day.
Yeah, the most things. What did it look like?
Yeah, it would be, okay, so I worked out early, right? So
Okay.
super early, so fasted cardio. Then it would be like immediately get a protein shake.
Okay, so what's
afterwards.
super early?
At 4 o'clock.
So, okay,
4 a.m., let's go.
Let's just make sure we know this. So
4 a.m., which is 3:15 getting up, right?
wait, hold on. Let's okay. Let's back this way up. So how old is your one and only child?
She's 2.5 now.
So awesome.
Yeah.
And you decided pretty soon after that to do this new thing that you've never done. So again, that's awesome.
Yeah. Thanks.
We can talk about sort of why here in a second, but even with that, you got up at 3:15 to be able to do cardio by 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. That's
And then,
significant. Now, did you do that fasted?
Yes.
How long does that last generally?
I think the most I ever had was 35 minutes at a time.
It's not nothing.
Yeah,
Okay,
I mean,
yeah.
it was good.
Okay.
Like, it went by fast. It was, like, more interval stuff.
And
like,
then the next thing you did was what?
I would train because it was like I just had to. So,
So
like, in
fasted
an ideal
cardio.
world, maybe I could have trained at a later time and like had fuel in me, but it was like, no, we just went from cardio straight to the training, and then it would be protein shake, and then it would be meal 1 is like 30 minutes after.
Okay, what would meal 1 consist of?
There, like towards the end, it was orange roughy and oats.
The
Yeah,
classic
dry
orange
oats.
roughy.
You know,
Okay.
I like it. I liked it. Now, that's when you get people say, oh, you're eating that for breakfast? I don't think that's my choice, but cool.
Yeah,
Thank you.
you kind of forget that there's other humans consider certain foods breakfast and other.
Yeah,
and
it was
yeah,
like,
that goes away.
I'm just listening to the plan.
Okay.
Like, okay.
That's part of the plan.
Um,
So fasted cardio means, did you have water before that? Was
I
that
did have
water
water.
during? Okay,
so
we're
a
allowed to
lot
have
of water.
Okay.
A lot of water.
A lot
like
of water.
A
Do you
gallon
know
and a
how
half to 2 a day.
Okay, that is a lot of water.
Yeah, I maintain that. And I still maintain that. I love it.
Okay,
Like-
so tons of water starting from when you get up.
Yeah.
Fasted cardio about 4 o'clock. Protein shake directly after. How many grams of protein do you know?
30 to 40.
30 to 40 grams of protein. Was it a specific? Was it whey protein? Was it
So I used collagen
collagen? Okay.
protein.
So
yeah.
then we went from that straight into meal number 1, and then what would happen after that? Your training's done for the day.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well,
we've done
yes.
we've done our weights. We've
Yes.
done. Was there a second session of cardio?
There was a brief period where I did have an evening,
Okay.
and that was just like trying to lose a little bit more fat.
Okay.
But I maintained my steps, so that was like anywhere from 12 to 15. But
that's
that's
a
like
lot.
just my habit that I've had for years on years.
But that's a lot. That's not nothing.
So like
Yeah.
that one just maintained.
Okay.
But then it would be every 2 hours pretty much you're eating.
Okay,
And
so every 2 hours, what would my meals generally look like? Would it be that orange roughy just again and again and again, or did you have like that's meal 1, then meal 2, and then interchange those
Yeah,
all the
I
way
think
down?
I had usually like 6 to 7 meals,
Okay.
and they would kind of change. So it would be, I know at the end that was like a long time. I started getting mad at Chastity. I was like, I'm doing this again. But here we are. The second meal was broccoli and tuna. The third meal was orange roughy and asparagus and some omegas. And then 4 was flank steak
Okay.
and asparagus. And we had
So
tuna
there's a lot
and
of variety.
broccoli.
I mean, I said that sounds like a lot of variety to me.
Yeah, it was,
Yeah,
and then
okay.
some orange roughy broccoli, and then some more orange roughy. I mean, it was a lot of orange roughy.
Okay, Chastity, what's the significance of the orange roughy? So you've been doing this for decades. Like, what is it about orange roughy that you like?
So orange roughy, it takes fat to burn fat. So you can't pull all fat out of a diet and expect to keep moving the right way.
Sure.
So then orange roughy has a fat that will blow right through you.
Oh, yes, it will.
Okay. Okay.
It won't stay.
If you
And
know,
so-
you know.
Yeah.
Okay. Orange roughy.
Yeah,
Got it.
It's a white fish. It's lean. So
Oily.
yeah.
Yeah. And you guys cook it in a really interesting way that the listeners might want to know about.
Well, I started, and I told her, I'm like, if you've got everybody complaining about the smell, because it doesn't smell great, I got an electric skillet and started just cooking it outside on a.
You didn't just cook it.
I tried to like.
You
really
burn
up.
it.
Yeah,
you
because it
burn
tastes better. You get some crunch. Listen, you die for some crunch.
Okay, crunchy orange roughy that I burned. That's interesting. Yeah, okay. I would have never thought that.
You can
but-
like pick it up and you can.
Yeah.
And then, so you would watch and you see, okay, this is how it's trending. This is how it's trending. I need to adjust X. What would you look at, and then what would you change? So give me an example. I would look at Caitlin's. You said separation was a big deal.
Yeah.
Okay, so you see that. Then what do you change?
Well, for example, we were probably 3 weeks out, and I had said, there'll come a point in this where you're going to feel really flat, like you can't get a pump.
Explain to me what flat is, because I feel like even coaches, and I've been doing this for 22 years, still misinterpret what that means. Like, what is flat?
There's not enough carbohydrate in the diet to get the muscle to get a good pump, right?
So the muscle glycogen is so far depleted, the athlete just looks like there's
Yeah.
not a lot going on.
Right. You
Okay.
even start going, I'm losing too much muscle. That's the way you look like in the mirror when you look at yourself. And you can't, like, normally you could do some upright row or banded stuff and get some type of pump in the muscle, and that won't even happen for you.
And that's because of a limitation of carbohydrate.
Yeah.
Okay, so at that point in time, do you kick up the carbohydrate?
Well, we're 3 weeks out, and we still need other body parts to come together. So we didn't, but when we got really low, and it was like, okay, we are probably all that we can do and come down from the upper body to the lower body so that we come in symmetrically on stage. Let's do this. Let's have a meal where you go eat whatever you want to eat Friday night.
Listen, I was so happy when I got that text.
What is that? Okay, so that makes me feel stressed to
Sure,
be
and
able
it
to
would me
like
too.
I would freak out and
Oh,
I
I
wouldn't be able to
did.
do it.
Yeah.
Were
it
you able to
does.
do it?
I did. Because
What did you go eat?
I had a poke bowl.
That's what you wanted to eat?
Well,
Would you tell that to somebody like me? Like I would be face down in like 7 dozen donuts. Like I feel like that's not.
So,
That's,
because getting to know Caitlin and watching her, I could tell that she's very serious about doing
yeah,
multi-level
yeah.
lifts,
To that to
right?
be your, it sounds like almost the same thing that you were. So I would have
But I
had
had rice.
You would have
Yeah,
had rice.
I had
okay.
a big bowl of
Got it.
rice. And
Okay,
and it
that's
also
delicious.
had like some mushrooms and some red pickled
You're thinking about it
onions.
right now.
Yeah, because it was good. Like
Okay, got
it
it.
had crunch, it had flavor.
Okay.
But I did not put salt on it, and I didn't put sauce, right? Because it
Oh,
was
we
like
gotta-
I
Well,
can't.
There's the mental piece.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Then that to me that's okay. So you do that to see what's gonna happen. Like you want to
No, I
you want to
gave
have
her
a.
break. I just gave her just.
Is it really about the break, or is it like you want to be able to have a view into the future of what the muscle's going to look like when you refeed the athlete? Is that what you're looking for? Because you said it's flat.
Yeah.
So are you looking to see like, okay, this is probably what she's going to be able to look like roughly in 3 weeks if we did X? Or is it not really about that, just giving her a little bit of...
It gave her a break. It
Okay.
gave her a break. It gave the body a break. And at that point, she's gone so long, right? She's gone 9 or 8 weeks, 7 weeks, and not had a break, and she's not done anything off of plan. That mentally and her body was tired too. She was really tired.
So how did she look after she did that? Did you see what you wanted to see? Did it work?
What worked was that the next 2 weeks we could sail right into that.
Okay.
Yeah, and she was refreshed and ready to go for the next 2 weeks.
Caitlin, was there ever a time where you're like, no, I can't do this?
It was
Or-
that week.
Oh, really?
Like
Okay.
I came in that Wednesday and like I was just trying to work out and I was just there and like somebody said, I've been waiting to see this change. So, like you don't look bad, but like I've been waiting to see how mentally it's getting to you. They're like, I think you need something. And I just like about broke down and started crying because I was like, yeah, this is really hard.
Okay.
You know, which like life was not easy at that time, right? Like, but this kept me disciplined in both. Like I needed it to do this. Like life had to be hard to like keep doing this, but like this also made it to where life was like, okay. So,
So
it's
this
like,
extra added challenge
Yeah.
actually made it a little easier. Easier may not be the right word, but it made turned the noise down on some of the other stuff.
yeah, like
Oh,
they
that's
both
interesting.
really like worked really well together, but
Because
like,
usually you wouldn't hear that. You'd usually be like, oh, I don't have time for this. But you're saying like because I was able to dedicate here, this didn't drive me nuts over here.
yeah,
Well,
which
that's
is like
good.
a really weird parallel to
No,
all the
that's
things.
good. Yeah.
But in that week, I was like, man, this is tough. Like, I wanted to cry in the gym. I didn't want to work out. I was like, I'm going to do it because I have to show up, right?
Yeah.
But when I got that text, it was after I got done working out. And I was just like so excited. I looked down at my phone. I was like, oh gosh, what's Chastity going to say? And then I was like, I get a meal?
White rice, nonetheless. I can't get over that it
Well-
was with no salt.
I mean, it was just like, honestly, I was just afraid of what would happen, right?
Yeah, yeah. Like
I was so afraid, but I was like so excited
do you
because
feel like all this work is going to go away?
yeah, I did. I was like, I'm gonna wake up and I'm gonna be like really
Yeah.
bloated. Yeah,
Yeah.
and you know, because fat's not the right word, but like mentally, I'm
But,
like,
yeah,
what's
you're-
gonna happen? Also, like, what's my gut gonna do?
Sure.
Like,
yeah. Sure.
this was probably the least inflammatory diet I've ever been on, because I love potatoes.
So
with
for the
it.
most part, if the calories weren't so low, you would probably feel amazing. If your activity level wasn't so high and the
Yeah.
calories weren't obviously so low and you weren't on it for such a long time, you'd probably feel the best you've ever felt.
Honestly, I think, and this is like where I think it's really cool, is even with the lower calories, it still was not that low because I had such a high maintenance that I was on for so long that, yeah, like we dropped the calories a lot, but they still were not as low as what maybe some people would think.
Yeah.
And so I still think it was really healthy because I don't think we ever really got below 1,500.
Okay. So running into that wall that you hit is very common. I think it
Yeah.
happens to just about every athlete at some point in time. I think it's almost a general rule. You probably see that quite a bit. Are there things that you've seen, and then this will really help out listeners that are kind of teetering towards some sort of competition like that, are there things that put more walls in the way? Like, are there things that you see athletes, they always make these mistakes and then they quit, or they never want to do it again? That's one of the main things you and I talked about was we've seen athlete after athlete after athlete do what Caitlin did, but then not do what Caitlin did and just walk away from everything for eternity. It was hard, and then they walked away from it forever after that. Caitlin got to the challenge and like wants to do more of the challenge. So that's awesome, right? But what do you see athletes doing that is setting themselves up for failure?
Well, probably the reason why starting, the reason why they would start, their why was wrong from the beginning. You know, I just want to look, I want to lose weight. I want to look really, really good.
So this isn't something, if you just wanted to look
No.
better, you're not going to say, well, you should do what Caitlin did.
No, because and
Okay.
that's what my conversation with Caitlin a lot of times, every time we meet, would be like, this is a sport. Like, I try to use the language of, this is a sport. It's just like running a track meet. You know, you're training for a track meet. There can be more of it, and you are really, really good at this. I mean, what you've shown me so far, you can take this anywhere you want to, understanding that this is a sport, and the sport behind it is the mental challenge, right? That you make it through the whole way, and that you are your best on game day, and there's a short amount of time that you're going to be up there, right? Very short amount of time. You walk off stage and you're like, I'm done. Like, too weird. I spent all that time. So continually just looking at it from, this is a sport. This is not like you just want to look your best, because if you have that mindset, there's so many things that can really mess you up afterwards, right? You can overindulge with food. You can let all the weaknesses you never really overcame. So whenever it's over with, you go back to those weaknesses, and it's still the stronghold that it was. So then you start to hate the way you look, and before long, you don't want anybody else to see you, right? First off, you feel like you've completely reversed back and failed, and you're embarrassed about that. So then they walk away from the gym, and then again, if your family, if the outside influences weren't the healthiest, they're encouraging you to walk away from it too, because they weren't happy while you were doing it, right? So then all those things play into probably 40% of the females that I've helped step on stage are like, yeah, I'm one and done. I gotta be one and done.
Okay. Do you think that that's a lot from that outside influence? Is that what's really pushing into that? Or do you think it's, like you said, it's all of the things
It's
that
all
come?
the things,
All the things.
yeah.
So it sounds like you qualified Caitlin's personality, or maybe the reason. Why did you do it? Why did you want to do it?
I mean, it's funny, right? Because like as it started, it was like, I do want to look better, right? But also I like challenges. And like being in the fitness world, like what did I start with? Running, then I went to CrossFit, then to weightlifting, and then kind of like into a little bit of functional bodybuilding. So like, what's the next thing that you can learn? Like, what is something that I didn't know? And also in that, like, what's something that I have like faux pas about, right? And like, what can I learn? So then it was like, okay, let's see what happens. And as I got into it, it wasn't about what did I look like. Yes, it's like, who's going to judge me, because that's what you get on stage for, right?
But it's the sport. Like that's what you go. You know that going in. It's a subjective, judged thing based on whatever the eye of the beholder says.
And for me, it was like, can I be disciplined? Can I show up? Can I do the things? Can I maintain? Like, will I crumble? Like, what is going to happen? And like, I have so much respect for the sport now, right? Not that I didn't before, but I think there were a lot of things that like you hear that are just not great, like very negative.
Yeah.
All the people that I met, great people, right?
Yeah.
I honestly, like, I will say this has forever changed my life. Like the heart posture change, everything that came with it. But like I said this to Chastity, I'm the healthiest I've been.
Yeah.
You know, there was never a point in this that I was like, I think I'm unhealthy. I think I'm like, this is not great for me, right? It is, because all the things that like, drinking more water, let's go. You know, adding more muscle, can't go wrong there.
Yeah, just those two are huge.
Yeah, the cardio, like I had kind of pushed that to the side. And like, so everything in this has made me healthier, stronger. Like, I know how to show up when life gets hard. So like, I'm not just going to lay down now. Whereas before, any other time, it was like the things took a hold of me. And it would be like, well, if that hadn't happened, this is where I'd be. And it was like, well, all this was happening, but I still got to hear.
Yeah.
And that was like the most amazing thing of this, right? And had it not been with her and like the things that she would speak to me, which were all life, like I might have given up, right? Yeah. Maybe. I don't know. But a lot of it was just like, what can you do? And how can you do it?
Sounds like you qualified the athlete by making sure that they understood that it was a sport, first and foremost, that it wasn't just a little kind of fun thing to do, but also that really interested in the challenge. Like it's like you're such challenge minded that that extra discipline and the extra effort makes your life better, not that it's going to be something that you feel bogged down by.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we talked a lot about the fasted cardio. We didn't really talk about the training. How many times did you have Caitlin? Well, tell me about the training. Not this just the fasted cardio, which we said was every day or 6 days.
5 to 6 days.
5 to 6 days. So then, what did the training outside of that look like?
Hitting body parts. Like,
okay.
So we had leg day.
Body part split. Okay.
Yeah. And I'm always, both of our schedules were busy, but if there was a time where I could be with her and work out with her, then it was going to be either shoulders, back, or legs, because when you step on stage, that's probably the most. I mean, I consider those body parts the most important, right?
Shoulders, back, and leg.
Yeah.
Okay, so tell me what's the feature of each three of those that makes you want to focus on those more?
So you need a strong shoulder cap. You need nice shoulders, because that starts the V taper into the small looking waist. The back, how you train the back will help the V taper for your back shot. You want to make sure that you're not just symmetrically when you look from front to back, but also back on the side, from a side view.
Okay.
And the back plays a big part of that.
Okay.
Then legs, obviously, like you need a round butt and hamstrings that have a bicep to them, and then a quad sweep, which when Caitlin first started, she already had a nice quad sweep, which is really hard for women to get, it seems. So I knew
years of weightlifting.
Yes.
Thank you, weightlifting.
Years of weightlifting. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. So then we focus on hamstrings, glutes, shoulders, and back.
So this is going to change per athlete, I would imagine. So you're going to find an athlete like Caitlin who has, you said, good quad sweep, great. So she might not have to dedicate as much time to that. But if you found if she needed that, you would probably do more things that lend itself to that.
Correct.
So in Caitlin's case, how many times was she training each body part?
Twice a week. Now that means though that I wouldn't care. She could hit abs, chest whenever she wanted to, but twice a week on legs, twice a week on shoulders, and twice a week on back.
Okay, got it.
And I mean, for a first show, that should do perfectly.
Say that one more time. Twice a week on legs.
Yes.
Twice a week
on shoulders and twice a week on back. That just means in a 7-day period, you're going to hit those body parts twice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got it. Caitlin, when you were doing that, how did the training feel versus the training before you started working towards the competition? So body part splits during competition prep versus what you did before. What's the difference in how you felt?
Some days it was like way harder, right? Because it was just a different style of training. Like, especially with some of the ways that Chastity would train, you would have these dumbbells and you're like, it's not gonna be hard. And then you're like, what just happened?
Okay.
Like, how did that just wow, and it'd be 45 minutes. Like, I'm not sitting there spending, hours on hours.
Yeah.
You get your stuff done in 45 minutes. And so you're moving.
Yeah.
But as far as like strength, I actually got way stronger, right? Like,
yeah.
Again, I say I'm healthier because I am stronger because I developed what I didn't have.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Like, I didn't have a strong back before.
Yeah.
And so adding that in, it was like, okay. Like, I think I had shoulders. And did I have some legs? Yes. But I was more quad dominant. So it was like the hamstring stuff that really helped.
Yeah.
So it was challenging because it'd be like, oh gosh, okay, I just got to hit this, right? I got to do this. And like some things were taken away. Like I couldn't really use the barbell. And that was sad for me.
Let's talk about that. So why couldn't we use the barbell?
Because we want a small waist.
Okay, got
If
it.
you watch episode 30 something.
Yeah. Okay, you're right. You're right. Yeah. So you're thinking if we had Caitlin, and when we mentioned weightlifting, first off, you're a fantastic weightlifter, and we
Thanks.
actually mean the sport of weightlifting. We mean
Yes.
snatch, clean, and jerk, which obviously has an implication that we do some form of deadlifts, we do push presses, we do a lot of loaded, and you're saying that, like we talked about in our previous conversation, that actually takes the trunk and expands that. So what we're trying to do is, like you said, create exercises, that actually make it appear that my athlete has more of a taper even if they don't.
Correct.
Okay, so you remove the barbell at what point?
Or from the beginning.
So from the beginning we're doing dumbbells and body weight stuff.
Yes.
Okay, so how does that feel to somebody that goes from weightlifting to not touching a barbell again for 10 weeks?
Like sometimes it was sad.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
I think it was in December. I was like, okay, this is my last like barbell workout. And I was like, it's okay. Because things come in seasons, right? Like, but there at the end, I was kind of like, I miss some front squats.
And you're a fantastic weightlifter, so that's a big loss.
Yeah, I think I hit during, one of the CrossFit workouts, Pandemonium Week. I think I was like, let me just see what I can snatch, because like, what are 3 reps gonna do?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh wow, I'm strong, but like, what happened to like the
Technique.
explosiveness?
Yeah,
And I was
yeah.
like, ooh, okay. But like, it's fine, because if I want it back, I can have it back now.
Sure.
But
sure.
like, it was good. It's just a difference in training, right?
Yeah.
Like, so what can you learn? That's the way I had to look at it. I was like, okay, well, the food's going away. Take the other thing too.
Now, this technically, so we should clarify, is this an off season? We haven't picked the date of a next competition just yet.
Not just yet.
So this would technically be an off season, even if you're staying right on the diet or very close to it, we'd still consider this an off season since we're not pointing in any direction.
Yeah.
That being said, is that still the case? Are you still not allowed to touch the barbell? Are you allowed to?
Haven't you been? Or have you been?
I did a weightlifting workout last week because I was like, I just want to do it just for fun.
Yeah.
But no, actually, the stuff that I have planned out for like the next 12 weeks is all dumbbells, like machine, like rower, bike, and then just some stationary stuff. So
Are there exercises that you would almost always give? Like you're like, this is almost always for every athlete, hands down. They probably need it once. They might need it 3 times. Are there anything like that where you're like, across the board, these exercises everybody should be doing?
You mean like lying hamstring curl?
Specific exercises where you're like, this is almost always the thing that people need to do.
So I would lunge and lying hamstring curl.
Is that the truth?
I had so many lunges. Yes, there was a long time that it was like, hey,
Okay.
before you do your fasted cardio, you have 4 sets of hamstring curls. Or like, I had a lot of walking lunges or split lunges in my cardio.
Is there a reason that you like the prone position as opposed to a seated position when it comes to hamstring? Because we have talked about this, and I like to get it on camera.
Surveys.
I do believe that studies show that the seated is the most responsive, but maybe I'm wrong. What is it about the lying that you like?
I like the fact that you can actually curl that bicep up,
Okay.
and lift your knees and really squeeze your butt as hard as you can.
So you almost like to do it from hip extension instead of hip flexion more. Okay. Okay.
It's
Got
hard.
it. It is hard. It's very challenging. So lunges, constant lunges, prone, hamstring curls. What's another one? Are there any other ones?
I was reminded that the straight arm pull down is probably the only way to hit the serratus and really get a definite lat spread, a strong lat spread, right? And if you're struggling with your lat spread, that you probably need more standing straight arm pull downs.
Got it. That's a great cue. Okay, got it. And that would probably add to the illusion,
Yes.
and not just the actual musculature, but the activation of the athlete being able to actually flex that muscle, which is almost impossible for most athletes the first time go around. Most athletes, males included, cannot flex their lats at all. So you've been there.
That was probably,
You've been there, right?
that was probably the one thing that came from infancy to a wonderful lat
Hey,
spread, like
thanks.
an awesome lat spread.
Yeah, I
Okay.
had nothing.
Yeah.
It's very challenging for most every athlete, male, female included, to be able to tap into that musculature. So good for you.
That's
dude.
what I could do better, though. Like, that is what I could do better next time, right? Like,
Well, there's probably a lot of things
Oh,
that when you walk off the stage being a serial competitor that you're like, yeah, I want to do this better. I want to do this better.
yeah.
And are the lats would be one of them.
I think just overall the posing, right? Like,
Posing.
Is there
Yeah.
anything that when she's up there, you're like, okay, this is what we're gonna go home and work on?
Posing, like,
Okay,
I-
posing.
You watched, and at this particular show, which doesn't happen all the time, the judging, they were putting the girls in the order they thought they would win or that they would place, right?
So if I'm in the audience and I'm looking at the stage, they're pushing number one, who they think is gonna
They're
be number
putting
one,
number
far
one
over
in the
to the
middle.
left.
They're putting
Oh,
number
okay.
one in the middle.
Oh, okay, got it.
They're putting second place
To the left of number one.
to the left, if we're,
Okay.
right, if we're looking at the stage, to the left of her, third's and right, fourth and fifth. So I watched them rotate the girls once, and they moved Caitlin to the left of center, and I was like, oh,
It's a good sign, yeah.
yes, it's a good sign. And then they rotated one more time, and they moved her back to the right of center. And I just think it was the posing. It was first time jitters. It was, but because if you look at pictures when she's hitting it, hands down, she wins. She looks like the figure competitor on stage.
That's awesome.
Yes. It was just first time jitters, and like I said, you get 15 minutes to do to show what you've been doing 11 weeks or more of prep for. So.
And the interesting thing about it is that the discipline you've had from having to do sports, the working out you've done forever, but the posing is the thing that we don't have that much practice with. So that's the
Yeah.
part where you're saying we just need to add in a little bit more posing. And then speak to me about doing this again. So what happens to Caitlin the next time? And we were talking about this, like, in a way it's quite a bit easier. I mean, you know what's coming, so maybe that's easier, maybe that's harder, but in terms of getting her body ready, would you say that it's going to be easier for her to be ready the second time and each subsequent time thereafter?
Yes.
Okay,
for sure.
why is that? Is that just because you know more about how she reacts, she knows more? What goes into that?
So we've learned that we probably, I mean, if we were in a time crunch, even the first time, we could have done this in 9 weeks, right? We
Okay.
could have been ready in 9. So now she stays around, we know what 8 weeks away looks like, right? So she stays 9 or 8 weeks out all year while she's adding muscle to her frame. Then the time frame to get ready shrinks down, which is nice.
Sure.
But also in the beginning, those first 3 weeks, it's not the leanest foods in the world. Like, you could actually eat more of your red meats, eat more of your green beans, than and have a little bit more time with just slightly disciplined food, and then the last 5 to 4 weeks head into a really, really tightening. So the first time out, you're just learning how quickly we did it. You went, I pushed her hard because I want her first time, if she chose not to do it again, I don't want to walk away going, well, we could have done better. I mean, we could have done more,
Yeah.
Really, she walked away going, we couldn't have done much more. Like, we did it.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And so
that's awesome.
this now, if she chooses to do it again, there's a little bit, I don't know, there's probably like 30% more leeway in getting ready for it and laying down for it.
Does that excite you that you could have maybe a little bit of, I guess that's a little bit less rigid? Is that what we would call that? Or is that just take less, or not do it for as long, the actual
Not do it for
competition
as
diet?
long.
Okay.
Yeah, not do that hard, leaning down really hard.
And probably preserve a little bit more muscle
Preserve
along the
it.
way? Okay. Do you like that idea? Like, when you do it again, that you get to be a little, or are you going to have to try to stay just as disciplined or hardcore that you did this time to be able to duplicate it in your own mind?
Yeah, no, I think that's why I'm like, oh, okay, like, I want to do this again, because, I mean, unless I just go way off the deep end, like, then, I'm just building more muscle and I'm just going to get stronger. And like,
Yeah.
if I stay like where she says, which is like just trust the process again, like enjoy life a little bit, but not go crazy.
Yeah.
Then like, yes, the next time I don't think it'll be as mentally exhausting. Cause like this time it was like, you have all of this muscle to build. So like you have way more work. And then also like not knowing what's coming. But then hopefully like my life is not as hard as it was in this season. So that then it's like way more enjoyable. Because I don't think it was ever like, oh my gosh, you know?
It sounds a lot like this part was really good, and then some of the other stuff was a little bit challenging. Though.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. Now, what's the feature when she does what she's doing now? So we were on a 10-week diet. Do you have to take 5 weeks off? Or do you have to, not off, but do you have to have some sort of refeed period for 10 weeks or 10 weeks of not dieting? Is there a specific thing that you do after the competition that sets her up for success for the next one that requires going away from what you're doing less of it? Like you said, staying really close to it. Like, what's best case scenario?
Yeah. So if we use measurements like body weight, and then just actually like, sight and saying, okay, we've added some body fat back on, which is good. Then we know where about 8 to 9 weeks is out from stepping on stage, and we just hold that, and workouts become a focus. Like weight training becomes the focus.
Okay.
Not necessarily the diet. Like she's not receiving a diet from me now. She's going back to some foods that she knows it did what it did to her when she was eating them, and just as long as she knows, okay, I want to maintain this body weight, and when I look in the mirror, I can still see some abs. Okay. Otherwise, everything else can be softer. And I just still, feel good. I feel healthy.
And that gives her a little time physically to recover and mentally to recover. Caitlin, how close are you to what you were doing in terms of diet and
Right
your
now,
program?
really, really similar, but like I'm adding more. So I'm going to go slowly into reverse, like to get back to like that maintenance. So it's almost like the things that she had given me prior, like I'm starting to add back. So it's like just doing what I did in reverse, right?
Yeah.
But allowing myself like, some meals that are like, I'm not going to worry about what it is. I'm not going to like track it. I'm not going to even think about that. I'm going to do it. It's enjoyment, but just like plan it, right?
Ooh, that's good.
So I know it's coming. Like stay disciplined. You get something, and like enjoy training. So it's like, don't go crazy, even though like would I love to?
Sure.
Yes, I would. It's funny because every treat that I wanted has not been there. So it's been like, okay, I guess I just wasn't meant to have it.
But that's really smart, that sort of edging back into things, going really slowly instead of, again, what we said in the beginning, most of us just the next day or that evening start gaining. I mean, I did it after my first show. I was 20 pounds heavier 2 days later. Like, that's probably not the best way to do it. Do you know how much you've gained? Have you even tracked that?
So I don't know what I weighed on the day of, because that was the only day. Well, I guess the 2 days before.
Water then, so there's some stuff that comes up.
But I'm sitting at where I was 2 days before the show.
Would you say
so the Thursday before?
Would you say that's common out of athletes, or would you say Caitlin is uncommon in that where she hasn't?
Yeah, that's what I tell her. Like, if she wanted to, she could go as far as she wanted to in the sport, because it's uncommon. Like, to develop regimens that say, I'm going to stay disciplined is uncommon, right? To not be worried, to not be anxious afterwards is uncommon, right? She is acting more like an athlete. She's an athlete in a sport who understands the sport, understands themselves.
Yeah.
So I've told her, like, I've given her different ideas to try to stay within the community, because there is a community. Like, all you have to do is go to one of these backstage and you see a lot of people that you see in armor.
Yeah.
And so, and she's met new people. So I think if you just stay in that community and then
get a sponsor.
Consider yourself an athlete.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Then she's going to do great. If she wants to, she can do great.
What would you say if somebody's on the fence to competing? What would be the thing that you would tell them either to look out for if they decide to go for it, or if they came up to you and asked for advice on how to get started, what would you tell them to do?
I don't know. I'm all for it though. I'm like, do it. I know, Chastity was like, anybody can do it, right? Yeah. And like her friend's like, no, they can't. And I know that's like a thing. Like, no, I don't know that everybody can, because it's like, how mentally tough are you? Like, are you going to make excuses? Like, I think that's the thing, is if you go into this, know that like no excuse is going to be worth it, right? And if that's who you are, if you already have excuses, like, then don't do it. And maybe that's a hard truth, but that's the thing, because a lot of people are like, oh, I wish I could do what you were doing, and I'm like, but you can. And they're like, but no, da 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 da, and I'm like, Caitlin, just keep your words in your mouth.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
Yeah.
I could say some things,
Sure.
but like, did I do it?
Yeah.
And it's just, do you want it or do you not?
Chastity, is there a follow-up to that where you would say if somebody was on the fence that you could give them some sort of question or guidance to have an internal audit to, is this for them or not? Or is it the same sort of what Caitlin was saying? Like, if you're already going in making excuses, this ain't for you.
Yeah, I think that's pretty good advice.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to be.
It's a little harsh.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah, and if someone, I'm always like, let's try it, because you see what it does for someone. That's the exciting part. It's like, I'm like, do it. Come on, let's just grind and do it.
Would you say that the 4-week sort of jump that you had, would that be a good, like, hey, maybe you should test it on these 4 weeks of what a diet would look like, what training might look like? Would that be a good place to start?
Yeah.
Or is it a better place to start to being like, here's the calendar day that I'm going to do it, register, and
Yeah. So, because she knew, she had made up her mind. She said, I do want to do this. Okay, well, let's have a little test run and see. I need to see how fast your body will submit. So, we did that, and that's what I said. When we walked away at Christmas, I was like, she's happy. She still wants to go. So let's go, and so, but she was already in her head, like, I'm going to get ready for this show, right?
so that sounds like it's it. It sounds like you're there to where the calendar does not scare you. You're looking for things, and then you backfill everything.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and then 2 to 4 weeks in, if someone's like, couldn't make it for morning cardio, but I'll get it in, and I'm like, we need to rethink this.
Okay.
There's no way. There's no
Okay,
way
it's not gonna
we'll
work.
make it to the finish line. Yeah.
Here's the thing, like, that's the thing. They're gonna know if you did it. So it was like, if I just like don't even say anything and I don't do it, like, you're gonna know.
Yeah.
And also, like,
Coach
I mean,
knows, man.
coming from like
Coach
an
knows.
athlete, like, you don't want to disappoint your coach if they're an athlete.
Yeah,
And
that's
like,
true.
another coach that was Chastity's coach was like, if you want to be an athlete, train like an athlete. And I was like, oh, okay, so that's like sticking with me, right? Like,
Oh,
I was like, what does that mean? Okay, do better.
Well, Caitlin, congratulations.
Thank you.
Fantastic. Coach Chastity, congratulations. You guys did wonderful. Thank you guys for coming on. Is there any parting wisdom that you want to give, or did we cover all the things?
I just do it. Like, again, this was a great journey. Like, so much growth. I'm so thankful. Like, so thankful. Thank you.
Well done. Well done, ladies. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Awesome.